and welcome to the next People Lab Elements session. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Katie and I work at People Lab with Emma. Unfortunately, Emma's offline today with a client, so I shall be running the show today. So in the last session, we spoke about employee engagement enablers. Emma introduced the 5 enablers, and those were strategic narrative, leadership, employee voice, involvement and integrity. Over the next few element sessions, we're going to look at each one in a little bit more depth, but today we're going to be covering strategic narrative. So providing a strong strategic narrative about an organisation is a key enabler of employee engagement. This is about having a clear and compelling story of where the organisation has come from, where it's going and why. It provides employees with a vision and a purpose. We previously spoke about the importance of purpose when looking at this model here, which you may or may not remember. So having a compelling vision and direction that an employee understands, feels a part of, buys into and contribute to is one of the building blocks of an engaged workforce. In addition, there's further evidence that's particularly important for millennials. So we're often asked specifically about how to engage millennials, and it seems that having a clear purpose and strategic narrative is critical. So a great example of getting your strategic narrative right comes from the infamous story about a janitor working at NASA in the 1960s. You may or may not have heard it before, but it's a great story. So it's said that JFK took a tour of NASA and asked the janitor what it is that he did. Rather than answer with a list of jobs and tasks that he completes on a daily basis, he simply replied, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon." Simply put, NASA had helped him to understand the bigger picture and the importance of his role as part of their ongoing story. And it's pretty obvious that helping to put a man on the moon is much more engaging than just saying I sweep the floor. So to help you to create a compelling strategic narrative for your organisation, we've come up with some top tips, so kind of our 5 top tips about how we think you can create a compelling strategic narrative. So the first one, don't know what's going on with the slides there, I'm sure it'll catch up in 2 seconds. So the first one is to think about the journey. So a good narrative always starts with you creating Sorry, I told you to catch up. That's technology for you. So a good narrative always starts with you creating a strong structure, one that can answer the key questions about the journey that the business is on. So it's really useful to start with these questions, and they could just be as simple as where are we now, where do we want to get to, and how will we get there? This should definitely cover where you are today, but more importantly, where it is you want to get to. So number 2, get your leaders involved. If the leaders within the organisation have had an opportunity to contribute to the creation of your narrative, then they're far more likely to support it. So you need to identify who your key stakeholders are and which leaders, and then involve them right from the start. So number 3 for us is about keeping it simple. So a lot of companies today have visions, they have missions, they have ambitions, values, behaviours. They may or may not have set out objectives and or principles, as well as other key messages. And it can be really tempting to throw all of them at your narrative. But to land what it is that you really need to, your narrative needs to be clear and simple, and just focus on the core message that you want to get across. Sometimes the challenge is not what you put in, but what you leave out. So try and be really tough on yourself and set limits as to what it is that you're going to include. So, number 4 for us, again, a bit of technical issues. There we go. Help people to make it their own. So, a strategic narrative will always have some elements that are totally non-negotiable, that the organisation just has to have in there. However, leaders and managers are much more likely to help you bring it to life with their teams if they feel it's authentic to them and that they think it will resonate with their teams. So if you just start with your framework, you can then have a conversation with them about how they can personalise the messages and make it real for their teams. Number 5, last tip. So keep the narrative alive. Employees are much more likely to focus their energy on the narrative if they believe it has longevity. So utilise all of your internal communication channels. Encourage leaders to reference the narrative in their interactions, in their meetings and their announcements, and use consistent language connecting business decisions and initiatives back to the story in question. So I hope these have been helpful, but obviously if you do have any questions, then please do get in touch. And don't forget, you can still use our free employee engagement diagnostic tool to help assess your organisation's engagement levels. If you can't remember where it is or don't know where to find it, then I will be posting the link to this again onto our social media channels after this session. So our next session will be on Wednesday the 17th of May, where hopefully we shall have Emma back with us. It will be taking place at 3 p.m. and we'll be talking about the next employee engagement enabler, leadership. So until then, have a great week. Thanks a lot for joining us. Bye-bye.